So I just finished the ARMS Global Test Punch, and ultimately it was a good time. It exudes the same polish we've come to know from Nintendo, both in mechanics, graphics, and novelty. And although it does feel very new, I can't help but feel as though it shares a lot of similarities with another competitive game, and not one you'd expect: Rocket League. This seems like a strange idea at a glance, but if you really think about it, it starts to make sense. It's not just that the camera is fixated on your target. This is natural for a 3D fighting game, which is why you see it in games like Dragon Ball Xenoverse. The big similarity between these two games is how they handle immediate power. First, let's look at Rocket League. It's easy to look at this game and immediately call it car soccer. And while there is validity to this, it's a lot more like another game. In his video about Rocket League, YouTuber Rated S Games likened the game to billiards. By the way, if you haven't seen that video, you totally should. That's to say, you have to line up your attacks just right and then go all for it, which contrasts from real soccer in which your legs have a lot more maneuverability. This is necessarily how Rocket League's mechanics work because that's how cars work, and this is true of just about every driving game you play, though it's a little uncommon for driving games to ask the player to intentionally run into other objects. Basically, you have to heavily commit to your moves in Rocket League, which is parallel to how your punches and grabs work in ARMS. In most fighting games, many attacks have some kind of lag that persists after the attack is dealt. And while ARMS definitely does have this, it also has a pre-lag, or a lag that goes on before the attack has a chance to hit. This adds breadth to the typical rock, paper, scissors mindset that comes with punches, grabs, and guards. If you see an opponent using a grab, you have a moment to react by punching to stop them. If you see an opponent using a punch, you have a moment to react by guarding. Moreover, if you throw a punch or grab at your opponent but you miss them, you're at a major disadvantage, just like if you were to miss the ball in Rocket League. However, in the event that you are a little off in both these games, they do have a slight failsafe. In Rocket League, you can still turn, albeit with far less control at top speeds. This means that if you're a little off, you can still turn a bit, and depending on how fast you're going and how far off you were, you can still save an off lineup. Similarly, ARMS lets you maneuver your arms as it's going, and it too is limited. Not only does it limit how much you can maneuver the arm, but it also limits your movement, since the inputs to turn the arm mid-punch is the same as the inputs to move your character. It might be unconventional to think, but these games have more than a little bit in common when it comes to the power and commitment behind your moves. Obviously, they're still drastically different in other ways, controls, genre, and win condition being the most immediate ones, but I think this is how ARMS manages to feel as good as it does. The controls feel very new, even on the Pro Controller, but the mindset of a player at any point in the match is going to be familiar, since it blends fighting game conventions with those of other familiar games. In a way, this makes every character feel a little bit like a glass cannon, but it still manages to put heavy emphasis on predicting your opponent, which in my opinion makes it a great accessible fighting game, especially if someone wants to branch out and start getting into other fighting games. Thanks for watching. I usually make longer content, but after playing the Test Punch, I was very driven to make this because I thought it was a unique idea. What are your thoughts? Leave a comment below and don't forget to subscribe for more video game analysis.